I am 43, try to do my best to provide for my wife, F38, and 2 kids, 3, 5, as well as my MAL, and would like to think I am doing a decent job. Over the years, I worked to improve our family's living situation. Not only did I complete another bachelor's and recently master's in a STEM-related degree, I at the same time worked 2 full-time jobs, while completing my second bachelor's, and put my wife through school as well. She completed a degree where she could make good money, 60-70K/year, in a healthcare field that always has jobs available. But with the birth of our 2 kids, she has since gave up on her career to be a SOM for the time being. At first it was a struggle while I was finishing up my master's. Once I completed it, after our youngest turned 3, my career took a jump up and we are now able to afford our single-income household in a more feasible manner. We're far from rich but do okay for a single-income family of 4, a little north of 150K base bonuses. The past year life was overwhelming per my wife, so even though I now work 75% from home, I budgeted to hire a daytime nanny to help her around the house with 1 child while the other is in school now. My day starts every day around 5:30-6 am. I get the house ready for the day before the nanny comes at 8 am. I get our oldest up and ready for school, breakfast made, and plan out my day, bring our oldest to drop off, and be home in time to let the nanny in. My most recent task at work has me grounded for the next 2 months, meaning I am now 100% WFH. While this is nice, I am busy in meetings all day as my role manages teams on a global scale as I oversee projects from my industry. For the past 1.5 months, I realized my wife, as much as she says her life is stressful at home, starts at 10 am. I asked my MAL and nanny if this was always the case after a week or so of WFH, and they both responded more or less. Sometimes earlier, sometimes later. My wife literally wakes up and cooks and then scrolls through her phone or shops from home. Which brings me to my gripe: I am glad I am able to provide her that sort of life since we both grew up lacking in means. I get the possibility of postpartum depression, the stress of having kids, the feeling of being unfulfilled, the fact that I probably am a shitty husband. But for what it's worth, everything is taken care of and then some. I manage the house's finances. She claimed she was too busy to do so, pay all the household bills. I pay my own personal bills, I pay her bills, track and perform all the upkeep of our house appliances/cars/pets/ etc. And I also help pay for my MAL's medical bills and car note. But apparently my life is on easy street compared to hers. I can't decompress to her because it seems like she always feels the need to one-up me. I had a bad day. But she had it worse cause I'm lucky I got to go away and work. My feet hurt from walking all day during work travel, which is nothing compared to her standing and cooking with a child clinging to her. For the past 2 or so years, I've been told I ruined her life, her opportunities, etc. But when I reminded her of what she says, she denies and dodges accountability. My MAL has brought me aside and stated she's noticed a change in both myself and my wife. I have a greater attachment to my kids and hell, I've hugged the dogs and talked to them more about my life than to my wife. I honestly feel like I am in emotional survival mode as I'm 1 step from moving up the career ladder and 1 step away from finding love and comfort from the bottom of a whiskey bottle. I'm sure I'll be hearing from the manly men of Reddit about how I'm simping. But I'm not a machine. I just want to know and feel that someone I prioritize aside from my kids appreciates and loves me for what I do. I'm sure I'll hear from the stay-at-home moms of Reddit. Which is fine. I grew up in a single parent/mother household. It's not easy. And honestly, with the help of her mother and a nanny Monday through Friday, for 1 toddler while another child is at school. Can you honestly tell me she's having the typical SOM experience? Because neither my friends or colleagues who are single parents can say she is. I'm sure the masses of holier-than-thou Redditors will consider this a poorly written fanfic, but it is what it is. It feels depressingly sad that I feel that I have to turn to random internet strangers for some sort of validation in my rant. My apologies in advance as I try to keep this as vague as possible. I just wanted to update those who have been kind enough to check up via DM and comments. Apologies in advance for the lengthy post. It's a bit of irony and coincidence that I made a follow-up from the update on May 6, 2024 I made on my original post during Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, but I could really use another outlet outside of my therapist. My apologies if this isn't the story bookending/destroying of a relationship people were hoping for. To save you a read. Wife left. Came back like nothing happened. She made it about her. Nothing's changed. I'm continuing to be suffering mentally, knowing nothing will change while trying to keep it together for our kids. Lots of takeout. The day after she packed up and left, my wife attempted to come back and take the kids with her to her sister's. Naturally, I was against this, and thankfully so was her whole family, including said sister. Not only was it not fair to our kids for her to sweep them away into a home that's not theirs, but to put that financial and housing stress on the rest of her family, since she doesn't work and her sister and her family, husband and 3 kids, stays with their dad in the house they grew up in. After a little over a week of being away, I guess she cooled off, so she just decided that it would be fine if she walked in the door with her bags as if she just came back from Target. She came into my office while I was working and angrily stared at me while I sat on a conference call meeting with my team, and I couldn't just jump off as this is a busy time of the quarter for us. I guess that didn't sit well with her, because once I took off my headset and closed my laptop, she started yelling at me about how much I really don't care about her and her well-being overall. At that moment I couldn't do anything more than look at her and just shake my head. Mother-in-law came in after hearing my wife yelling and pulled her away, telling her to not bother me, while our nanny kept our youngest away from it all on the other side of the house. That night, after the kids were put to bed, I sat in my office by myself with a drink, as I have been doing for the past nights, and my wife came in. We talked. We argued. We cried. We drank. One thing led to another and we were in bed. I wish I could say that was our making up, but the next sobering morning as we laid there, she went on about how hard it was for her the time she was gone. Literally. It was about her struggles staying at her family house in her old room with her dad and sister's family. How lucky I am to be able to stay here and do this and that and buy this or do that and not stress as much as they did. How easy my and everyone else's in our family lives are compared to hers, even though we had similar upbringings. My mind and heart broke that morning. I've been spiraling down since then, and this last week I made another attempt to reconcile and talk things out, but I was met with a shouting match while trying to express my current stress and anxieties with life and work in general. Wife, well, do you know how hard this is all for me? You're supposed to help me be happy. Me, so when it comes to my happiness, stress, needs, and overall well-being, FK me get over it, right? Wife, we all have our own problems, you need to figure it out and get over them. I don't know who the woman I am at home with is, but that wasn't the woman I married and vowed to spend my life with and raise our kids together. Since that conversation, I've been noticeably distant with her. I've been sleeping in my office or on the couch or with my kids in their bed after putting either one of them to sleep. Still doesn't change her starting her day at 10 a.m. and sitting on her phone talking to her mom groups between cooking meals with the kids in both mother-in-law and nanny's care. Nothing has changed, and I doubt that anything will change. Sadly, I think even if we got a divorce, nothing would change or feel different anyway, since during my wife's leaving the days seemed like any other day except with a little more takeout than usual. My main fear there isn't that I wouldn't just lose my wife, I'd lose my kids in the process, so I guess it's sad to say the grand finale to my story with, like a lot of men and some women I've talked to here, I'll just continue to smile and suffer in silence. First off, thank you for all the comments and DMs, some context and clarification, since admittingly my post was emotionally charged since I typed it up after another argument. Post-birth, our kids' pediatrician's office gave my wife those postpartum depression screening forms, and during the time of both she scored pretty high and was suggested to see a therapist. With our second child she scored significantly higher, and I should say I made an effort to get her the help she needs. She refused, so entered mother-in-law and nanny for support. I know what people will say/think, but this is one of the reasons I am not 100% ready to just give up and file our life together away. After a hard push from our family via an intervention, my wife and I finally attempted to go to marriage counseling. I'm sure many of you can guess how well that went. Blame. Tears. Regrets. Gaslighting. With a side of I am the reason for her life being ruined and horrible. Again. Just this time in front of a licensed therapist instead of Reddit or mom groups. In the end, everything the therapist suggested and noted went over her head and ignored, as it was against the grain of her status quo. One thing I guess worth saying was the therapist asked if she could recall when she last truly felt happy. Her response was about 12 or so years ago. Please note, 12 years ago she was still in her 20s. Childless. Living with her ex. A vastly different time and position in life. I know it's petty of me, but I guess if that's when she was last happy, it wouldn't be that far of a stretch for her to find that happiness again since her ex is in the same apartment, job, and place in life that he was 12 years ago. Which is fine, if that's how you want to live life. I try not to judge, but in my 40s with kids, going clubbing 3 to 4 days a week is not my jam anymore. And of course, I don't want my kids around a mom and company who drowns themselves in White Claws. To add, I know some will ask, I know, and can confirm she hasn't physically cheated on me but can't confirm if she did emotionally, if that's the right term. After said therapy session, I checked all her phone records and didn't see anything out of the ordinary, but I also didn't bother to check apps like IG or Snapchat. I know I'm probably boring, but shout out to all the Costco dads whose Sunday Funday includes making rounds with kids for samples. The following weekend was Father's Day, and this year is expected not that big of a celebration as it is for many dads out there. Our family got together to celebrate with a barbecue and just simple family time, and my wife treated it like any other day. Sleep in. Get up. Cook. Phone. Shop. Attempt to play with kids. Phone. During said family barbecue, my wife said she felt ill, so she sat around most of the day while the rest of the family as a whole made the experience enjoyable. When everything was set up and the family all sat at the table, her parents and sister's family, my mother, our kids, admittingly it was a great spread, nothing extravagant but just a great meal for everyone. I was conversing with my brother-in-law about both of our kids' school Father's Day activities, and I assume my wife overheard when I mentioned that it was a little sad to see some kids sit alone without their fathers during the Breakfast with Dad event I attended. She blurted out with a laugh loud enough for the whole room to hear, "It's not like you do anything anyway, I could have gone instead." At that moment I was red and at a loss for words, sitting there processing what she said in my head, while the dining room went dead silent. My MIL broke the awkwardness and in response said, "Well, maybe if you feel that way, one of you should divorce the other." My wife looked at my MIL confused that she would respond with that and laughed mockingly in my direction and with her hand pointing at me said, "As if another woman would want a man like him? Just look at you." While the room sat silent. So, I made a mental checklist for the end of 2024, self-esteem, almost gone, confidence, hanging by a thread, ability to open and trust anyone outside of my current inner circle and dog, non-existent, hatred towards my ex and her newfound life, surprisingly gone. All I could do was just laugh a little at the snap on my phone. She left me, she hurt me, but she did not destroy me. We're now two different people with two different lives, and I must move forward for the ones I owe it to. Other than the connection of our kids and some immediate family, we have no more connections, and I really have no interest in acting like I was in my 20s and my 40s and spending half my paycheck on liquor because it's Tuesday and New Year's Eve. Maybe I'm just boring, but I can and only want to focus on my kids and ensure that their lives and future is the best that I can provide. Ensure the people and projects I oversee stay afloat and going in this economy. And last, but not least, make sure both my mother and MIL are taken care of in the future moving forward. Advice from what I learned to the men out there: if you're in a similar situation, don't give up hope. But keep in mind, actions, records, and overall proof speaks louder than your words. It's an uphill battle, but no man has to fight it alone. Plan, prepare, seek reputable counsel and advice, and in the end execute. As hard as it may be, stay focused and be as objective as possible in these times. And most importantly, follow through with what you say and promise to your kids. To the women, stay off social media and comparing your life to others. Just kidding. The first piece of advice applies to anyone regardless of how you identify. It was nice to see she was able to make it to our youngest's first Christmas school assembly, where our eldest said speaking parts in the play before work. Later that week, I brought our kids to bring her a plate of food on Christmas Day at the hospital because she has holidays to work. I'd be lying if I said that didn't hurt or that I didn't feel uncomfortable with the stares and whispers from her coworkers while I waited for the kids to excitedly give her their presents and wish their mom a Merry Christmas. Even though she was trying to be welcoming, all I could do was say Merry Christmas and wave goodbye from the distance as we left, this past Christmas, with as many blessings I have to be thankful for. It all felt so hollow at the same time. During New Year Eve, I embraced my inner Pinterest dad, trying to make everything as festive and fun possible, and copied ideas of doing a countdown at 9 p.m. for the kids with a balloon drop in our living room and popping some fireworks as soon as the sun set. On that note, I should mention that I rediscovered my love of cooking, something I did for years while a bachelor with my roommates and the stress of a 4- and 6-year-old insisting that they're mini versions of Gordon Ramsay and can provide Michelin-level sous chef services. With the kids tucked away and asleep, I rang in the new year with my dog and a drink. Scrolling on my phone with the sounds of fireworks popping in the distance, I saw that my ex was living her best life and her new life snap after snap after snap. I'm sure many will see the irony in this. I'm not entirely sure her motive or if I'm just reading too deep into it, but she dropped lines about how stressful and expensive their living expenses, rent, utilities, cell/internet service, and insurance, or groceries are now, and how surprised it cost to feed her, her BF, and whoever the hell else comes to their home. I'm not sure why, but she initially was under the impression the generational suite was meant for her use when she has the time and wants to co-parent. She is even more tired and struggling with her schedule now because she works a total of 48 hours a week and forced to work overtime at times, and her BF works, but I didn't dig or care about the details. But I do care that I think she thinks I don't notice that she takes some of our usual household staples and items with her before she left. Mainly bottles of soap she always bought for our home, Sonicare replacement brush heads and other toiletries, a new unopened bottle of the Mountain Valley water from the fridge when she visits, and I may be reading too deep into something again, but sometimes I find some of the Instax pics from the fridge missing. Usually it's just of the kids or MIL and the kids, but a few were of the 4 of us in the past. Although her White Claw fund takes precedence over their home's Charmin 2-ply supply, I try to be as accommodating as possible so that she can still be involved with our kids. Allowing her to drop by our home whenever, if ever, she can, still work primarily from home so I'm always here, and keeping her in the loop about their activities and such. I'd like to think overall I'm a simple man. All I wanted to do was get married, have a family, and provide. With that goal in mind, I somehow got into a position where my spouse was able to choose if she wanted to work or not and not worry about anything outside of our family. How it turned out like this, I can't pinpoint. I'll admit I am a bit oblivious of what I did, but maybe it's my own fault, as some PPL stated, and I brought this onto myself. Post-settlement, I ended up downsizing and closed on a smaller but spacious house for the 3 of us and our dog, with a separate generational suite in our backyard for my MIL to stay as she wished to stay involved in our kids' care regardless of if I was married to her daughter or not. Honestly, I made sure that addition to the home was available for her because I hoped she would be able and open to help until the kids were a little bit older. For what it's worth, it seems my ex found her happiness. Luxury trips in a short time frame she wanted, her BF and her move to a bigger place to stay, luxury high-rise studio but still no place for our kids to stay, her BF got his dream car, and a long list of expenses and shopping sprees that kind of benefited our kids if at all in any way sprinkled in her social media accounts. She's rocking Cartier while our kids are sporting Carters. My ex came to visit our cute little house to visit our kids and MIL and complimented me on my choice of home and that I was able to keep up the status quo of our home without her. While I had no say or real cares how my ex moved forward with mediation as long as she agreed to terms, I think the biggest slap in the face to me was how she delegated her boyfriend as someone to advise her throughout this process, because his opinion is more important than any lawyer who isn't looking out for my best interest. At this point, the holidays were around the corner, and I didn't want this to disrupt the holidays for our kids and family. While I was prepared to go to court, my ex did not want to diminish her payout and I just wanted things over and done with. I'll leave out the finer details of the terms, but in exchange for having majority custody and taking care of all expenses related to our children, I would give her that lump sum she was aiming for with no request of child support on my end. She kept all her tangible possessions, i.e. car, bags, clothes, jewelry. I had to sell the home and split the profits from the sale and foot the bill on taxes, gave her almost all our joint bank accounts after legal fees, and to top it off, laughably she argued rights to alimony, which she's not getting. As a PSA, don't rely on your legal advice from Facebook groups. In the end, reality sinks in. Since my last update, I've been under the scrutiny of our social circles and labeled every typical toxic man/husband stereotype that Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram has to offer. As much as I hate the saying, I kind of understand the "you know my name but not my story" posts now. With that said, these strangers or alienated family and friends can take their opinions and go FK themselves, because in the end, if our kids are happy, healthy, and flourishing under my toxic household, what's it to you? The more important updates: we're divorced. I have majority custody, and even though my ex is now trying to be the present mother whenever her now busy schedule allows, it is too little too late. My ML continues to be responding well to treatments, and Sayal has now taken over where my ex was supposed to be in helping oversee her care, post-divorce, I recently moved homes and jobs and accepted the next step forward career-wise, which my company has been kind enough to slowly transition me into the role as leadership understands what I am going through at home. Interestingly, it's amazing how common my story is amongst my colleagues and network. I am sad/happy to say I am now one of the newer members of the Fellowship of Divorce Directors and Execs. As sad as it may sound, it is nice to know that many understand and are willing to offer a high degree of support, advice, assistance, and guidance as needed. The divorce itself was quick, but it still had its sad and angry moments, and many of the people in my camp think my ex got away with robbery. But the fact that I was awarded majority custody and per agreement have our kids almost every day and know they're safe under my roof is worth every cent. I was angry, heartbroken, confused, and embarrassed all at the same time. In manly man fashion, I just nodded my head in silence, stood up, and picked up my keys and got in my truck and drove off to get a drink while trying to ignore the cries of the rest of the family and our kids telling me to stay. I don't know what was said or done while I was out of the house the rest of Sunday, because I couldn't bring myself to check our house cameras, but when I returned early Monday morning, the house had a completely different feel. As usual, I woke up around 6, got the house and our oldest ready for school drop-off. Checked emails. Checked messages, nothing out of the ordinary. As I was getting dressed to leave, my wife laid in our bed snoring lightly. All I could do was look at her and think of what we had and now lost. I've decided. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I texted my lawyer that morning to move forward with serving her. Fast forward to last week, she was served at our home. Reminder to people I had no choice but to be there because I work from home. She had, I guess what you could call a mini meltdown, and came into my office screaming how could I do this to her. Her mother intervened, and that was met with me supposedly turning her whole family against her. But I digress. I probably would have felt bad if it wasn't immediately followed by the rest of her week acting as if she's been this active and attentive wife and mother the past few years. Sure, people can say she's making an attempt, but she's made many attempts, and historically we fall back to where we've been. Second story. So me and my boyfriend have been dating for about 4 months now. We were long-distance friends for a month before we started dating. We started dating after I moved to his state. His family knew about me before we started dating. He would occasionally hype me up to his family and show them pictures of me, with my consent. I finally got introduced to his family at a family barbecue. They're a bunch of fun people, they drink a lot, but they're fun. However, his brother got a bit too wasted at the barbecue. Me, my BF, and him are sitting and drinking on the porch while everyone else is in the yard playing and dancing. He out of nowhere asks, "Hey, did you ever send him a tit pic?" "You should've." My BF just kind of brushes him off, being like, "Ah, come on, leave her alone." But I'm really uncomfortable that he asked that around the rest of his family. I nervously laugh and ask him, "What? Why would you ask me that?" Apparently my BF had said something along the lines of she's got a hot body to his family while talking about me. I didn't want to be around either of them at the moment, so I got up and went to join his family in the yard. Hyping up my job, personality, or stuff like that is fine, but it feels a bit weird to hype up my hot body to his family. After I went to the yard, that was the end of that convo. Later that night I try to bring up to my BF that I was uncomfortable with his brother and also ask him about how he's been talking about me to his family. He says he's too tired and to chill out. "You're taking it a bit too serious." I don't bring it up again. Fast forward to the next time we're all together again and his brother is acting weird once more. My BF and his dad are doing karaoke while his mom and sister are getting the food ready. I'm sitting on the couch holding my BF's little nephew on my lap. His brother stops singing and plops down next to me. I'm a bit surprised and a little scared by the way he sat down. I try to ignore him, but I suddenly feel a hand rubbing my waist. I whip my head to see that it's his hand. I'm stuck frozen for some reason and ask him what he's doing. He says he was just looking for my phone. Take it easy. I scoot away from him on the couch and avoid him for the rest of the night. Later on, I try to tell my BF what happened. He says that it was probably an accident. He's not that type of guy, that he's just been acting a bit weird since he lost his job, and to not pay him much attention. At this point I'm confused on what I'm supposed to do. I want to hang out with my BF's family, but I don't like the way his brother behaves. I can't tell if I'm overreacting like my BF is saying or if his brother is making a move, so I'm not sure if anyone cares since it's been a year grinning face with sweat, but I just wanted to write an update. So I'm now 20, I told my aunt about how my boyfriend and his brother were behaving, and boy did she go mama bear mode, but rightfully so. She ended up getting me to join some women's support groups. My now ex-boyfriend did go ballistic when I broke up with him. He showed up on campus and yelled at me, saying I was an ungrateful bitch and that all I was good for was being an easy piece of ass. He did get removed from campus grounds for starting a scene, but it was just embarrassing. People heard and saw it and I didn't know how to react until someone stepped in. I haven't dated since the last situation with my creepy boyfriend. Maybe I'm just a bit paranoid of it happening again. I've learned a lot about healthy relationships from the support groups, but I just worry that I'll find myself on the bad end of another relationship. Recently, a classmate of mine asked me out and he's a really nice guy, also, this time no huge age gap. We study together and occasionally hang out. He's been pretty helpful whenever I don't understand something. I did reject going out with him. I told him I wasn't ready to start dating again yet, and he respected that and hasn't made any moves on me or anything. But I also thought my last boyfriend was nice, and he turned out to be a low-key predator. I don't want to be paranoid and fearful of dating, but I also don't want to accidentally put myself in another situation. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to Red Relationships to never miss a future upload.